Welcome to the 2025 season preview video for the Tampa Bay Rays. My name is Michael here at the Upside Sports Network. Appreciate you guys joining us late on a Thursday evening. Tampa Bay Rays had an up and down season last year, riddled with injuries, riddled with off-the-field issues as well, including Wander Franco. Hopefully they get off to a much better start than what they did last year. They did have some issues as well as injuries, as well as they tried to save some money this offseason, trading away Jeffrey Springs. There was discussions around Yandy Diaz last year and in the offseason. We'll see what they decide to do as they get closer to the trade deadline with the rest of this roster. They also had some issues with the MLBPA. There was rumblings that they could have a grievance filed against them from the MLBPA because they did not spend enough to get a share of that revenue sharing money. That and much, much more ahead for the 2025 season preview for the Tampa Bay Rays. Alrighty, the Tampa Bay Rays last year, just want to show you where they finished. Of course, they didn't win the division. The Yankees did that. They didn't win a wild card spot. Even teams from their own division finished ahead of them, the Baltimore Orioles. The Red Sox even finished above them, and they did so much more to their team this offseason than what the Tampa Bay Rays did. They're expected to finish far above them again this year. So where exactly did the Rays finish? 80 and 82. Now, they're going to get some reinforcements from injury coming back this year. That's going to help out. But Wander Franco is still not going to come back to this team, nor should he. Hopefully, he is no longer eligible, or he will never play in Major League Baseball ever again. I really hope for that to be the case. Some scary stuff around him, but he's going to be taken care of on the legal side of things. Let's talk about the 2025 season for the Tampa Bay Rays. So let's start with their roster. Overall, they have a pretty solid lineup. I like Yandy Diaz at the top. Brandon Lau still on the team in the two-hole. Junior Caminero had a really great coming out party in the Winter League ball this year. If you guys didn't check out those games, those were absolutely incredible games. Junior Caminero had an incredible bat flip, a ninth-inning home run. That really shows his ascent as a player. I'm expecting really big superstar-level things from Junior Caminero as their third baseman. Josh Lau is in right field. Danny Jansen, one of their free agent signings, 1 year, $8 million, I believe, to be their catcher. Kind of finally getting a chance to be an everyday catcher for the Tampa Bay Rays. Christopher Morel, formerly of the Chicago Cubs, is in center. Jonathan Aranda is going to be their DH. He'll be platooned quite a bit. Johnny LaDuca looks like he'll be in center. And at short, Taylor Walls. That, again, used to be Wander Franco's spot. Obviously, they need to find some long-term options. They tried Elvis Basabe there a little bit there last year. Ultimately, that didn't work out. We'll see how Walls does, along with a couple of the other infielders that I'm sure that they will try at some points during the year. Overall, they got a couple of really good offensive options. All three of the top guys are all expected to be above a 3 WAR. I'm expecting Caminaro to have a really great year, possibly an AL Rookie of the Year campaign, maybe even get a few votes for AL MVP as well. I don't think he'll win it, but I think he'll get some of those votes because of how good of a player I think he's going to be. I think 3.4 WAR, according to Fangraphs, is really, really low. Even with these struggles, I think he'll have at times this year as well. I think he's just going to have an absolute coming out party this year, and expect him to be, if you're a fantasy baseball player, expect him to absolutely stuff that stat sheet as well. But again, they're expecting around 118 weighted runs created plus this year. I'm expecting really big things out of Junior Caminero. I can't say enough positive things about him. For the bench, they got their backup catcher, Ben Rotveldt. Jose Caballero is going to be infield, outfielder, kind of a utility player for them. They're expecting Eloy Jimenez, who has signed on a non-roster invitee deal with the Rays, to be one of their bench bats. I imagine because the Rays always like having one guy who can really hit the ball, with power, etc., and have him be that one big skill set guy that has that skill set there. And then Richie Palacios as well. Overall, I think the bench could use a little bit of work here. We'll have to see how this lineup really kind of coalesces around Junior Caminero. I think they're going to give him all the keys to the kingdom this year. I think Yandy Diaz, if he doesn't fit well on this team by the All-Star break, he will be spent out. If Brandon Lau doesn't fit for the long-term future of this team, he will be gone. Josh Lau also could be gone as well. So, 3 of the top 4 guys, could be gone by the time the trade deadline is passed, and it will totally be Junior Caminero's team at that point. I think this is the type of year where we see the Rays really go out there and sell at the deadline, and they're going to have some nice pieces offensively to do it. Looking at their pitching staff, it's a really good thing to see Shane McClanahan back at the top here. Remember, he had the injury issue last year. That's why he wasn't there. He is their lone lefty, though, they're expecting in this rotation. Now, the Rays will use bullpen days. They will use a 6-man rotation. They are not afraid of doing either one of those things. So, looking at the rest of this rotation, Taj Bradley, Ryan Pepio, Zach Littell, Shane Baz, Drew Rasmussen, all really good options, I think, in the right situation. But having Shane McClanahan at the top really elevates this rotation to a team that should at least be competitive for a wild card for the majority of the season. They have McClanahan coming back from injury at around a 3 WAR. I think that's fairly accurate, especially when he's coming back from injury. I think next year they'll have him closer to a 5 WAR season. But they're expecting only 26 starts for him this year. Expecting him to have some, injury issues this year as he recovers from missing the entirety of last year as well. They're expecting around 160 innings out of 3 of those starters in that rotation. I think that's a little ambitious. I think they're going to have a lot of guys used in multiple inning type of roles out of the bullpen. I think they'll kind of mix and match towards the back half of that rotation quite a bit. Shane Baz, hopefully he can really ascend as a pitcher this year. I think that's the one piece that could really rise this year from the pitchers that they do have. Looking at their bullpen, Pete Fairbanks was another name that was tossed around in trade talks this offseason, possibly even going back to his former team, the Texas Rangers, who are still looking for a closer, by the way. Setup guys, they have Edwin Uceta, Garrett Clevenger, Manuel Rodriguez, Mason Montgomery, Alex Faedo, and Mike Vassell. Overall, I think this is a solid bullpen. You never really know much of these guys until they actually, prove their worth. Looking at this bullpen, they're only expecting Fairbanks to be around a 1 WAR. All the rest of the guys are relatively interchangeable, and that's generally how the Rays like it. They mix and match better than most teams, and even though, they might all be around a 4 ERA, the sum of the parts is always greater than the actual parts themselves. They add up to just a little bit more because of the way the Rays utilize them, and I'm expecting more of the same this year. Does that mean I'm expecting them to win the division? No. I think the Yankees are clearly better, the Red Sox are clearly better, and I think the Orioles, even without a true number 1 in that rotation, are still a better team. Overall, though, I still think they're going to be competitive. I think they'll be right there until probably the month of September, and then they'll fall out of the wild card picture entirely by that point, by my estimation. Injured players, Ha-Sung Kim, one of their big free agent signings. He has shoulder surgery, torn labrum anyway. He'll be back at some point during the year. He'll probably take over at shortstop from Taylor Walls later in the year. I do want to mention that one because I think that's really where they're hoping to get a little bit more production than what they had last year when they were trying to utilize multiple guys there. Taylor Walls will hold down the position early in the season, but Ha-Seong Kim will be the guy that will be utilized there the majority of the season as we get going as well. Alrighty, so that's kind of your position players, your rotation, your bullpen. Looking at their prospects, they're really strong as well. Carson Williams is their shortstop, top 10 guy, double A level. Let's go ahead and look at his numbers if it'll pull up here. Last year hit 256 and 821 OPS. Tells me he needs a little bit more seasoning down at double A before they call him up to triple A. I think he's a really good player, though. We'll see what kind of production they get. Xavier Isaac, anyway, is another good one for them. But again, he's still very young, going to be a bit of ways. And the rest of these guys in the top 100 are also guys that are a little further away. I think that they're going to get another wave of young talent coming, especially on the position player side, and so they just need to bide their time until they get there. The Rays are always very good at developing that minor league talent to the major league level, and so I trust them to be able to handle these guys very, very well. So just like Junior Caminero was one of the top prospects in the entire game last year, I think he's ready to take off this year. But not a bad prospect haul for them. They're always going to have multiple guys in that top 100. They're never going to be a team that's never going to have 2 or 3 guys in there. They're always going to have those guys and then some. Looking at the wins of the offseason for me, getting Ha-Seong Kim I think is a really nice piece for them. I got to see how he recovers from that injury though. But just having Junior Caminero on this team is really going to elevate this club, I think, and having a full season healthy from Shane McClanahan as well. Mistakes of the offseason for me or misses. I think that they should have tried to move a couple of their bigger contracts out, like a Yandy Diaz or like a closer in Pete Fairbanks. I think they could have gotten a nice price for either one of those guys, especially Fairbanks, with as high as the prices for relief pitching right now, especially closers. They could have gotten a nice return on the investment. And then, like I said, they were already in the crosshairs of the MLBPA for not spending enough money. They would have freed up some money that they could then go out there and spend even more in free agency or take on bad contracts from other clubs and turn them into positive assets, or take the positive assets from those clubs and just eat the bad deal. That'd be one or another way that they should have gone out there to solve some of these issues and utilize their money a little bit better, in my opinion. I think if they had done something like that, this Rays team would still be in basically the same position they are now on the major league side, but be so much better off because of the assets they would have been bringing in as well. So I just would have really preferred them to do that this offseason. Is it a big mistake? No. I still think they're in really good shape. They're set up for success in 26, 27, 28. But in 2025, I don't think they have enough ammunition really to be competitive in the AL East. I think for a wild card spot, it's going to be an uphill climb all year long, and I think they ultimately fall short, dropping out for sure by the time we get to September. Overall, not a bad team, though. Holes on this roster, I don't think they really have a hole on this roster to me, because I think this is not a competitive team to the likes of the Yankees, the Red Sox, etc. The hole, to me, is not creating a hole by trading away a guy like a Pete Fairbanks and allowing another one of their young guys that they always seem to find and have success with. Remember, Pete Fairbanks was not a closer when they brought him in from Texas. He eventually earned that role. He had injury issues, of course, as well during this time there with Tampa Bay. But trading him away, maximizing the return there, and allowing somebody else to establish himself as a closer there with the Rays, again, creating another valuable trade commodity for them, I think would have been a lot more valuable of a way to go. So let's head over to baseball trade values and just come up with a couple of trades here for the Rays at the deadline. So, like I said, I don't expect them to be a team that's going to buy at the deadline. They always tend to sell, and they sell and get a really nice return. So the pieces that I'm going to be looking at are guys that are making a lot of money with very little time left on their salary, usually like a year or two max. We're talking about guys like Danny Jansen, if somebody needs a catcher at the deadline. Little was a guy that was really available last year at the deadline. I wonder if he has another great year ahead of him this year if he is traded as well. Yandy Diaz has 2 years left on his deal. Brendan Lau, Pete Fairbanks, all those guys I think are in danger of being traded during the year. So we'll start with a guy in Pete Fairbanks. Let's go ahead and start there to kind of give somebody a closer. Where could we go for a team that's looking for an eighth inning setup guy or for a closing or for a closer here? I think the Astros could be in the market after trading away Ryan Presley. I don't think that would be a preferred destination, though. Braves, I know, are looking for some bullpen help, but they already have some money spent in Pierce Johnson. I don't think they're going to trade, premium assets for another bench or another bullpen arm as well. Cubs really tried to beef up their bullpen this year. Let's go ahead and see what they would be willing to give up in a trade. And remember, the Rays and Cubs just came together on the trade for Isaac Paredes at the deadline last year. Maybe this could happen again for a player of a similar term left on his deal as well. So let's say we trade him to the Cubs. Value on him is around 9-ish million. So let's go ahead and look around that surplus for around 9 million. What could you get? You're not getting Dansby Swanson, Jordan Wicks anyway. Peter Hodge could be the first piece that makes sense. I think they'll go really young, though, and get a nice bunch of pieces here. Let's say they do Hodge in this deal, Melendez in this deal, and say they get the Rays to eat like, I don't know, 2 million of it, just for it to make more sense for them. Trade 2 million to the Cubs, saves them a little bit of money after the deadline towards the luxury tax calculations. That would allow them to get another player around that 2 mil number. Let's go to page 2 here. Let's say they get 18-year-old shortstop Ronnie Cruz. That's actually a pretty good deal here. Cubs get another really good arm for their bullpen. I would guess Fairbanks would slot in there as one of their primary setup guys, along with the guy they just got from the Dodgers, Brazier, I think was the guy. And then, of course, they have Ryan Presley in that closer spot. So let's go ahead and post that to the trade board. 3 young pieces, 1 starting pitcher that would immediately go into the rotation in Porter Hodge. And then Pete Fairbanks, of course, going to the Cubs to help them for the pennant race. Not a bad deal overall. Let's do another trade here for one of their expiring deals, though. Let's do the Rays first, of course. Majors. And as far as guys that are making a little bit of coin, that have 1 year left, Danny Jansen's making 8.5 as a 1 year left. I was going to do an expiring deal, but I think we're going to go with Yandy Diaz instead. At 22 surplus value, that's a really nice value for them to really capitalize on. Still about the same value they could have gotten last year, but I think the shine is kind of worn off of Yandy Diaz more than anything else. Astros were really trying to push for him last year. That didn't happen. I don't think it's going to happen now after they bring in Christian Walker. Blue Jays could do it if they're looking for another bat. Move over Vladdy Guerrero to third base if they're still in contention, but again, tough to trade within the division. Braves, I don't think do it. Too much money for them. Brewers, I think, would really love to have that type of a bat there. I think they would love to have him over Rhys Hoskins, but they'd have to move Rhys Hoskins in order for it to make sense for them. I don't think that happens. Cardinals aren't buying. Cubs could be a nice option there, but I'd want to go to a different team than the Cubs because we just did one for them. Let's see. Let's go to the Mariners. They're looking for some offense. They got Rowdy Tellez that might make it out of spring training as one of their first base options. So let's say they do Yandy Diaz to the Mariners. Mariners, meanwhile, you're looking at about 22 here. That's a lot of value here. They don't have a whole lot of money to spend, so you're going to have to give up some money on these deals. In fact, let me look at the majors and just see who they could offload salary-wise. You could put Mitch Garver in this deal. I don't think that would happen. Jorge Polanco to save a little bit of money. That would be an interesting option. None of those pieces really fit with what would be a good trade for them, though. Mitch Haniger, maybe. But again, you're really, incentivizing a huge return going back to the Rays. I don't think that would work either. So you're not going to sell one of your negative assets. So let's go to the value here. 22. What would they have to give up? Crawford, Brash, Robles, Rayleigh. No. Maybe go the bullpen route and bring back a Santos and then go, some of their top prospects at this point. Let's go to the full roster. Harry Ford, you're not getting. Montez, you're not getting. Arroyo, you're not getting. Ty Pete could be a piece in this deal. Tough to really come with a perfect trade there for the Mariners because they're tight financially there. Let's keep looking here to see if we can find another fit. The Mets, they could use him as far as a DH first base type, especially if they have injury issues or just an upgrade over Marte. That could be an interesting one. Orioles, they have Mountcastle, not going to happen. Padres, I don't think they would do it. Phillies, they're locked up. They ain't doing nothing. Pirates could really use a piece like this. Would they pay a premium for it? Probably not. The Rangers, they already have a platoon there. I don't think they would do it. Reds, I don't think they do it either. Red Sox, if they found a trade that included Casas and Yoshida, maybe they would have a need for him, but I don't think that would happen. And again, in the division is tough. Rockies, they're not adding. Royals, this could be a nice piece for them. What would it take for Kansas City to be able to get this deal done? Around 20? You're not giving up your top prospects here, but if you did give up some talent, you could do an Ursig going back the other way, but again, he's going to be one of your setup guys. I think you'd prefer to trade one of these down here. Let's say they do a Carter Jensen, catcher of the future. Let's say they do a Yandel Ricardo, shortstop, 17-year-old. That gets you to 16, so you only need about another $5 million player. Say you throw in Ben Kudrna. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Pretty sure I'm butchering it, but let's say they did something like that. Now, at the trade deadline, his value is obviously going to be less. So let's say his value drops, about cut that in half to around 11. Because he'd be an asset at the deadline, you'd probably add another 2 back on there. So that gets you to, what, 13? So if we were looking for 13, maybe you take out Carter Jensen, and then you go with Kudrna and Ricardo. And again, that would be the deadline price, not the spring training price. So not a bad deal overall. There we go. GM override. And again, this would be his price falling at the deadline to around 11 and then up to 13 if he's an asset at that time and has a little bit better value than half his value with less than half of the season to go at that point. So not a bad deal overall. So we did a few trades here for the Tampa Bay Rays as to what they could do. As far as their payroll, let's go ahead and look at their payroll for this season. Last year they finished around $90 million. They're going to finish this year around $90 million as well. But look at their free agent dollars that they really have here. They signed Ha-Seong Kim to that 2-year deal, has an option for a second year. I guarantee you he'll pick up that option unless things go absolutely great with Tampa Bay this year. And so he'll get that $16 million salary. Now, Brandon Lau, this is effectively his final year because it's a club option next year. I don't think they pick up that option there in Tampa Bay. Yandy Diaz, same kind of thing. I don't think they pick up that option. But, at $12 million, that's not a bad number for a first baseman. I think it's a little bit more likely than a Brendan Lau. Drew Rasmussen, low-cost deal this year, bumps up a little bit in 26, and then a club option after that. And then, of course, you got Pete Fairbanks making only 3 this year, 7 next year on a club option. And then, of course, you have the arbitration guys in Shane McClanahan and several others. Looking at their payroll table for this year with the luxury tax calculations, they're around 119, well below the luxury tax threshold, but they're never going to be a super high spending team. Right now, they're in compliance with MLBPA, but if they sell off some of these more expensive pieces, they're going to be right back in hot water again with the MLBPA because they need to spend a certain amount in order to be a recipient of that revenue sharing money, which is what they do want to do. Looking at their future years, look at how little money they have locked up for future years. 42, 39, 39, 40, 40, and $41 million locked up long term. That's a lot of free agency dollars that they could spend. Now, add on roughly $30-ish million for players in arbitration, extensions, etc. That takes you to 72, and that gives you about $40 to $45 million to spend in free agency next year, or to bring back your own guys. So the Rays could certainly do some different things in free agency. We've seen them try to be the high bidder for Freddie Freeman in years past. We saw them be in there at the top of the market this year for a couple of the other top guys, and then finally go out there and spend a little bit in a surprising way to bring in Ha-Seong Kim this offseason. So they're a team that has a little bit more money than most of us expect. So do not be surprised when they make a couple of splashes in free agency next year. I'm not expecting a Juan Soto level player, don't get me wrong, but maybe a couple of guys in that $15 to $20 million range just to kind of beef up that lineup and beef up that rotation. I think that would be one way that they could go. But overall, not a bad outlook financially for the Tampa Bay Rays. As far as where will they finish in 2025, let's look at where they finished in 24. Last year they finished 80 and 82. In this division, I think they're probably going to be the fourth place team here. I'm going to say they drop a couple more games here because I think they will be out of contention by the beginning of September, as far as definitely for the division, but probably for the wild card as well. I'll go ahead and say they finish with 77, 76 wins, somewhere in that category. I think they'll be just a little bit above the Toronto Blue Jays and ultimately the fourth best team in that division. Do they sneak into the wild card as a sub 500 team? No. They will not be in the postseason. They will not win a wild card spot. They will not advance. But to me, this is still a good young team with Junior Caminero in place. I think all is sunshine and roses for them because they have that player in their system. And to me, trying to sign him to a multi-year extension right now would be very wise because he has superstar written all over him. And it's going to be a fun thing to watch him play baseball this year. So if you guys get MLB.TV or whatever the case may be, I encourage you guys just to watch the Rays game, just to watch Caminero play. You're going to like what you see. It's going to be a lot of entertaining baseball down there in Tampa Bay. But looking ahead to the 2025 season, what are my expectations for this roster? I'm expecting them to trade off some of their older pieces. And again, just watching the ascent of Junior Caminero to superstar status, I think he'll have a very solid year. Could get to the superstar level status this year, but I think that's probably more likely next year. A really good debut season, possibly an AL Rookie of the Year campaign coming for Junior Caminero. As far as the bullpen and the starting pitching is concerned, just making sure McClanahan is back and healthy and leading that rotation is the important part there. Other than that, I'm not expecting, Goliath level performances out of any of those other guys. I think they're really good options, depth options, kind of 3-4s in somebody's rotation. But I don't think they're anybody that you'd look at in somebody's rotation and say, now we got to worry about this guy shutting us out today. McClanahan is the only one in that rotation that really brings that level of fear. And I think he's a really good option for this team, but really not enough. As far as big trades, I don't think they'll be acquiring a Vladdy or a Kyle Tucker or anything like that. I think they'll be a team that will be selling primarily at the deadline. Offseason grade. Love the addition of Ha-Seong Kim. They didn't screw up their books too much from a financial perspective, and I do think they could have added a little bit more talent to the back end of this roster as far as the rotation, maybe going a little bit more expensive there. Ultimately, they're going to have plenty of powder to be able to do that next year as well. So just for not screwing up the timeline here for Junior Caminero and still having a very good farm system, I'm still going to give them an A-, just for not screwing up Junior Caminero. Could they have done more? Sure. Should they have done some different things as far as offloading some bigger salaries like a Diaz or a Fairbanks and then try to utilize that free agent flexibility to bring in bad contracts from other clubs or even sign guys in free agency? Sure. But I still like the ability that they chose to not make the move on Junior Caminero as far as blocking him at the major league level or not letting him hit in the middle of the order or anything like that. Giving him as many opportunities to be successful is the name of the game right now for the Tampa Bay Rays, because if they can get him to be a superstar on this roster, sky's the limit for them, not in this year, but in 26, 27, and 28. So kind of long-term building, long-term plan here for the Tampa Bay Rays is the plan this year for them. Growth and surprises. Growth, obviously, for Junior Caminero. Surprises. Maybe Aranda continues to elevate. Maybe we get a surprising season out of Walls. Maybe Ha-Seong Kim really does elevate this year now that he's out of San Diego. But I think he's a really good option for them at shortstop there. Ceiling for this team, I'll go ahead and look at the standings again from last year. Best case scenario, maybe they get the final wild card. I think it's highly, highly, highly unlikely. I think the Jays have a better chance of it, and I think the Jays are going to finish behind them in the season. I just don't think they have enough. You're only as good as the talent that you have and the sum of those parts. So The Rays usually make the most of what talent they do have. I'll give them credit for that one. But I think they're just devoid of too many pieces in that both that lineup and in the rotation as far as upper end talent, guys who can really ascend and make a difference. I think Junior Caminero is one of the few players that has that lofty expectation, and I think that's where it's really going to hurt them. And so I don't expect them to make the wild card. So I will say on the high end, maybe they just missed the wild card by a game or two and finish with that 84-85 win threshold. Worst case scenario for them, the floor for this team, I think could be in the high 60s, 69 to 72 wins. But I think more realistically, they're going to be right in that 76-ish win range, 77 wins, somewhere in there. But, that's kind of how I see the Rays ultimately finishing in 2025. I appreciate you guys joining us for 2 videos today. We did the the Toronto Blue Jays before we did this one. And now we've done the Tampa Bay Rays 2025 season preview video as well. So overall, we're kind of getting to the end of our 2025 season preview series. Tomorrow, we'll have 2 different ones coming your way, both AL Central teams, the Cleveland Guardians, and one of my favorites, the Minnesota Twins. So be sure to join us tomorrow around 9 o'clock for those. Appreciate all you guys joining us. Steven, thank you. 2 disappointing previews. I was hoping either team would compete more against the Yankees. True. I would say that neither one of the teams to me are going to compete very well against the Yankees this year. If you're looking for a team that's really going to push them this year, look forward to the Red Sox video. Or did we already do the Red Sox? I think we already did the Red Sox. I think we did. Check out that one. We'll have the Yankees video coming up on Saturday. So be sure to check that one out. So if you're looking for some Yankees interesting commentary, be sure to check that one out. It'll be probably around 8 o'clock on Saturday for those of you who are Yankees fans. But this was the 2025 season preview for the Tampa Bay Rays. I think it's going to be all about Junior Caminero and his ascent to stardom, and we'll see if he can get there this year or if he's going to need one more season to reach that lofty expectation. But appreciate you guys joining us. We'll see you guys again tomorrow night for the Guardians and Twins. Stay safe out there, everybody.